Things have taken a shocking turn for Joni Lamb, leaving fans in disbelief. After years of building a legacy in Christian broadcasting and presenting the image of a strong, faith-driven family, everything has suddenly changed. Known for her unwavering presence on Daystar and her dedication to ministry, Joni has now found herself at the center of a deeply personal crisis. The public had always seen her and her husband as an unbreakable team, but behind closed doors, tensions had been building, and now the truth is out. Joni Lamb's life has taken an unexpected and heartbreaking turn. She recently broke her silence, feeling the painful reality of what led to this moment, what really happened behind the scenes, and how this will impact her future. Stay tuned as we uncover the shocking truth about Joni Lamb's life-altering revelation, rumors, and speculation, trouble in the marriage of Joni Lamb and Doug Weiss. The whispers started long before the public had any clue that trouble was brewing in the marriage of Joni Lamb and Doug Weiss. At first, the rumors were subtle, nothing more than passing comments from insiders who noticed small changes in their dynamic. But as time went on, the speculation grew louder, fueled by their increasingly strained public appearances and the unusual silence from both of them on social media. For many, the marriage had seemed like a fairy tale. After the passing of Marcus Lamb, Joni had found love again with Doug Weiss, a well-known Christian counselor. Their relationship was presented as a testimony of healing, faith, and new beginnings, but behind the scenes, cracks had begun to form. People started noticing that Doug was appearing less and less alongside Joni at events where he would normally be by her side. Even when they did make public appearances together, their chemistry felt different. It was subtle, an avoided glance, a tight-lipped smile, a noticeable distance between them that hadn't been there before. At first, fans brushed it off. After all, every marriage has its ups and downs. But then the rumors began to take a more serious turn. Some insiders claimed that Doug was struggling with the pressures of being in the public eye. He had spent years as a respected counselor, helping couples navigate difficult relationships, but stepping into the world of Christian television was something entirely different. Being married to Joni Lamb meant that his every move was scrutinized, that his past was constantly under a microscope, and that any mistake he made could turn into a headline. Some believed that this pressure was weighing on him heavily, and that it was beginning to affect his relationship with Joni. But then came the even more shocking rumors, whispers that Doug was facing legal troubles. While nothing was confirmed, speculation swirled that there were financial issues from his past catching up with him, possibly related to his counseling practice. Some people claimed that he had been involved in legal disputes over business dealings, while others suggested that his name had come up in ongoing investigations. No one knew for sure, but the fact that these rumors were even circulating raised red flags. Was Joni aware of this before they got married, or had she only recently discovered something that made her question everything? Another theory that gained traction was that Joni and Doug had major disagreements over the future of their ministry work. Joni had dedicated her life to growing Daystar, ensuring that Marcus' legacy continued to thrive, but some sources suggested that Doug had his own ideas about how things should be run and that these differences had led to significant tension between them. Some even speculated that Doug had wanted a more prominent role within the network, while Joni had been hesitant to make any major changes. Could this have been a breaking point for their marriage? The public had no answers, only speculation, but with every passing week, more people began questioning what was really going on. Fans who had once believed in the strength of Joni and Doug's marriage were now filled with doubt. Was their relationship falling apart behind closed doors? Was Doug hiding something? And most importantly, how long had this been going on? As these rumors gained momentum, the silence from Joni and Doug only made things worse. Neither of them addressed the speculation directly, and that led people to believe that there was some truth to it. After all, if everything was fine, why wouldn't they just come forward and set the record straight? Instead, their lack of response only fueled the fire, leaving the public with more questions than ever. Then the real bombshell dropped. Reports surfaced that Joni and Doug had been living separately for some time. It wasn't clear exactly when this had started, but insiders claimed that Doug had quietly moved out of their shared home and that Joni had been focusing entirely on her ministry, avoiding any questions about her personal life. If this was true, then it meant their marriage had been in trouble for much longer than anyone had realized. Fans who had admired their love story now felt confused and betrayed. How had things gone from a picture-perfect marriage to a relationship full of distance and unanswered questions? Was this just another case of two people growing apart, or was there something much bigger happening behind the scenes? For now, the truth remained a mystery, but one thing was clear. This was no longer just a rumor. Something was happening between Joni Lamb and Doug Weiss, and it was only a matter of time before the truth came to light about the sexual text, what he would do to you. And I don't want to say that we talked about sex. I don't tell people we talked about sex like adults, but he never sexed to me, he never said anything inappropriate. We didn't have sex until we got married. He is known for his integrity. This is just sexual talk. When Joni had told me those things again, shoving them down, told you what things about the text he was sending you, and you were happy, and I didn't know how to process it. What text about the sexual text, what he would do to you. And I don't want to say that we talked about sex. I don't tell people we talked about sex like two adults, but he never sexed to me. He never said anything inappropriate. We didn't have sex until we got married. He is known for his integrity. This is just sexual talk. Okay, this is not in it. Okay, so when she starts telling me about that, I'm keeping it to myself. I'm really starting to get stressed. Things are not sitting well. My body's starting to get really, acting up. That's when my panic attacks started happening a lot. I'd say when you got the text, when she was reading all this stuff to me and Rachel and Beck on the other side were, like, what's going on? I'm not telling them not one word about that. When Jimmy comes into the picture as the one she trusted, after that, before all 6 of us met with Jimmy Evans, I called Jimmy privately because I didn't want to dishonor her or talk about that in front of her other children. I called Jimmy privately the day before the meeting, and he will attest to this. I said, "Hey, this is something I don't know how to process. Can you help me process it? Is this okay?" Life after the divorce, pain, shock, and public reaction. When the news of Joni Lamb and Doug Weiss's divorce became public, the Christian community was left in shock. Just months before, they had presented the image of a strong and faithful couple, a testament to love after loss. But now, that carefully built image had crumbled, leaving behind unanswered questions, confusion, and heartbreak. For Joni, the divorce was more than just the end of a marriage. It was the collapse of a future she had believed in. She had stood before millions, sharing her love story, believing that God had given her a second chance at happiness after losing Marcus Lamb. But now, she was forced to accept a painful reality. What she thought would last forever had ended far sooner than expected. In private, Joni was overwhelmed with emotions. She had spent years presenting herself as a woman of unshakable faith, but now she was facing something deeply personal in the most public way possible. Every detail of her life was scrutinized, every move she made was analyzed, and every word she spoke was met with speculation. She wanted to grieve in peace, but there was no escaping the eyes of the public. Doug, on the other hand, had his own struggles. His reputation as a marriage counselor was now under heavy criticism. How could a man who had spent decades advising couples on how to keep their relationships strong not be able to save his own marriage? The irony of the situation was not lost on the public, and Doug knew it. He had built a brand around being a relationship expert, but now his own credibility was being questioned. The reactions from those closest to them were mixed. Jan's children, who had embraced Doug as part of their family, were struggling to process what had happened. They had supported their mother's decision to remarry, believing it was a blessing after Marcus's passing. Now they felt protective of her, wanting to shield her from the criticism and judgment that was coming from all directions. They saw how much pain she was in, and they hated that she had to go through another heartbreak under such public scrutiny. Doug's close friends were also divided. Some believed he had been unfairly judged by the public, arguing that marriages end for all kinds of reasons, and that it was no one's business what had really happened between him and Joni. Others, however, felt that there was more to the story. Whispers of tension, of undisclosed conflicts, of secrets that had yet to be revealed. The media wasted no time dissecting the situation. Some Christian outlets took a sympathetic approach, offering prayers and words of encouragement for both Joni and Doug, framing their divorce as a sad but understandable part of life. Others were less forgiving. Headlines speculated about what had gone wrong, with some sources hinting that Joni had been blindsided by the split. Others suggested that Doug had been struggling behind the scenes for a while, with pressure from their public life creating strain in their relationship. Then there were the theories. Some people believed that Doug had wanted out of the marriage for months, but had stayed quiet to avoid backlash. Others suggested that Joni had discovered something she couldn't ignore, something that forced her to make the painful decision to leave. There were even rumors that the divorce had been in the works long before anyone knew about it, and that both of them had been preparing for this moment in silence. Through it all, Joni remained composed in public. She gave carefully worded statements about trusting in God's plan and focusing on her ministry. She knew that her audience was watching closely, and she didn't want to let them see how much she was struggling. But behind closed doors, she was grieving. Losing a marriage is painful, but losing it while the entire world watches is something else entirely. Doug, too, tried to keep a low profile, but it wasn't easy. The Christian community is not known for easily forgiving its fallen figures, and the judgment he faced was intense. Some accused him of being dishonest about his past, of hiding things that only now were coming to light. Others defended him, saying that no one truly knows what happens inside a marriage except the people in it. As time passed, The public's attention slowly began shifting away from the immediate shock of the divorce and toward the inevitable question. What happens next? Would Joni remarry again? Would Doug disappear from public ministry? Would either of them ever address the full truth behind their split? For now, no one knew the answers, but one thing was certain. This chapter in their lives had ended, and whatever came next would be watched by millions. The legal storm. Will Doug Weiss face prison? As if the divorce wasn't shocking enough, rumors began to spread that Doug Weiss might be facing serious legal trouble that could potentially lead to prison. At first, it sounded like just another wild conspiracy theory, something exaggerated by gossip columns and social media speculation. But as more whispers emerged from people close to the situation, it became clear that something was indeed happening behind the scenes. The first sign that something was wrong came when Doug started avoiding the public eye. He had been vocal for years about his work in counseling, regularly speaking at conferences and appearing on Christian television, but suddenly he became unusually quiet. His social media presence faded, and invitations to events he had previously committed to were either canceled or mysteriously rescheduled. This only added fuel to the growing speculation. Was he hiding from something? Then, an insider report claimed that Doug had been under investigation for financial misconduct related to his counseling practice. Some sources suggested that irregularities had been found in his business dealings, leading to legal scrutiny. Others claimed that he had been involved in disputes with former clients, some of whom had allegedly filed lawsuits against him. While no official charges had been confirmed, the mere suggestion that Doug was facing legal trouble was enough to send shock waves through the Christian community. For Joni Lamb, this was an unimaginable turn of events. She had already been dealing with the painful reality of her second failed marriage, but now she was being forced to watch her ex-husband's name dragged through a potential legal scandal. According to those close to her, she was in complete shock. She had built a life around faith, integrity, and the belief that her personal journey was guided by God's plan. But now, she was left questioning everything. Had she been deceived? Had she trusted someone who wasn't who he claimed to be? The thought of it made her feel sick. Joni had always been careful with the reputation of Daystar, knowing how easily a scandal could shake the foundation of the network she and Marcus had built. Now, with Doug's name being tied to legal trouble, she knew that some of that scrutiny could extend to her, even if she had nothing to do with it. Some media outlets were already speculating about how much Joni knew before the divorce. Had she discovered something that led her to leave Doug before it all came crashing down? Had she been pressured to distance herself from him to protect Daystar? The questions kept piling up, and she had no clear answers. Meanwhile, Doug was facing a growing crisis. Legal analysts speculated on what could happen next. If financial misconduct was involved, there could be an investigation into his businesses, potentially leading to charges if he had violated any laws regarding client confidentiality or misused funds. The consequences could be severe. Some reports even suggested that past employees or associates had come forward with complaints, adding more weight to the claims against him. Doug, for his part, denied everything. Those close to him said he was furious about the accusations, insisting that he was being targeted unfairly. He felt that people were trying to destroy his reputation, taking advantage of the divorce fallout to pile on more controversy. He had spent decades building his credibility in the Christian counseling world, and now all of it was at risk. He knew that in the court of public opinion, being accused of wrongdoing, even without proof, was often enough to ruin someone's career. Supporters of Doug stood by him, saying the allegations were nothing more than a coordinated effort to discredit him. They believed that enemies within the industry were using the divorce as an opportunity to take him down. But others weren't so sure. Even some of his longtime followers began questioning if there was more to the story. After all, these rumors weren't coming from just one source. There were multiple reports from different people, all suggesting that something was wrong. As the weeks went on, the tension continued to build. There was still no official confirmation of charges, but the speculation alone was enough to damage Doug's standing. Churches that had once invited him to speak quietly pulled back, waiting to see how things would unfold before associating with him again. His name was being discussed in Christian media in a way it never had before, not as a respected counselor, but as someone potentially involved in a scandal. For Joni, this situation became even more complicated. People were now looking to her for answers, expecting her to comment on the legal rumors. But what could she say? She had already spoken about the pain of the divorce, but this was something entirely different. Some sources claimed that she had been advised to stay silent to protect herself and Daystar. Others said she was still processing everything, trying to make sense of how things had spiraled out of control so quickly. If Doug was truly guilty of any wrongdoing, what would that mean for Joni's future? Would people see her as a victim, or would they question her judgment for marrying him in the first place? And if he was innocent, could she ever repair the damage that had already been done? These were the questions that lingered as the situation remained unresolved. No one knew for sure what would happen next, but one thing was certain. This legal storm was far from over, and it had the potential to change everything. More scandals and speculation about Joni Lamb's marriage. From the moment Joni Lamb announced her marriage to Doug Weiss, the public was captivated by their story. A woman who had dedicated her life to faith and ministry, stepping into a new chapter after the heartbreaking loss of her first husband. It was a narrative that seemed almost divinely orchestrated. But as time went on, the fairy tale started to crack. What had once been seen as a story of love and restoration soon became surrounded by speculation, whispers, and outright scandal. Long before their divorce was made public, rumors had been swirling that Joni and Doug's marriage wasn't as strong as it appeared at first. The speculation was minor. People noticed that Doug wasn't appearing alongside Joni as often as expected. Public events where they were once seen hand in hand suddenly became solo appearances. Social media, which had once been filled with sweet pictures and shared moments, became noticeably quieter about their relationship. At first, fans assumed that their busy schedules were to blame. After all, Joni had Daystar to run, and Doug had his own counseling ministry. But as more time passed, it became harder to ignore the fact that something wasn't right. One of the earliest scandals to emerge was the claim that Joni's children had never fully approved of the marriage in the first place. According to some sources close to the family, there had been tension from the start. While Joni was eager to move forward and find happiness again, her children were reportedly more cautious. They had seen firsthand the life their parents built together, and no one could replace Marcus Lamb in their eyes. Some insiders even suggested that Joni's decision to remarry so quickly after Marcus's passing had caused friction within the family. There were whispers that private disagreements had occurred behind closed doors, and while the family always maintained a united front in public, the cracks were already beginning to show. Then, more shocking rumors began to surface. Rumors that suggested Doug Weiss had entered the marriage with secrets of his own. While Doug had been known as a respected counselor, some skeptics began digging into his past. Questions arose about his previous relationships, his financial dealings, and even the legitimacy of some of his professional claims. Some speculated that Joni had been so eager to embrace a new season of life that she may have overlooked warning signs. Others believed she had simply put too much faith in someone who wasn't who he appeared to be. The most talked about scandal, however, was the claim that Joni and Doug had been struggling with major disagreements over their public and private roles. While Joni had spent decades building her empire with Daystar, Doug was used to running his own ministry with little outside influence. Reports emerged that Doug had wanted a more prominent role at Daystar, but Joni was hesitant. Some sources claimed that Doug had expected to be more involved in decision-making, while others suggested that Joni felt pressured to integrate him into a system that had been built long before he entered the picture. Their differing views on leadership, ministry, and the balance between personal and professional life allegedly led to numerous arguments behind closed doors. Then came the final, most damning rumor. The idea that Joni had discovered something about Doug that had left her with no choice but to end the marriage. Some speculated that it was connected to legal troubles he had been facing, while others believed it was something more personal. Theories ranged from financial misconduct to personal betrayals. With no clear answers, all anyone knew for sure was that something had caused Joni to walk away from the marriage entirely, and she wasn't looking back. The media, of course, ran with every possible theory. Some outlets portrayed Joni as a heartbroken woman who had been blindsided by betrayal. Others suggested she had rushed into the marriage too quickly and was now dealing with the consequences. There were even those who claimed the entire relationship had been more of a public image move than a real love story, with both parties benefiting from the pairing.